I've awakened again. Where am I this time? Oh, excellent. I'm in Neriak. Neriak is full of haughty dark elves, but they do follow my Lord Inaruk, and more importantly, they produce absolutely wonderful bottles of wine. It looks like I'm to be a cleric. How exciting! Cleric is definitely one of my favorites. Ah, Lord Zexus, still here I see. It is I, Darendrel. I've risen once again to spread hate to the world. Really? This is what you provide me? My Lord Inaruk does like to test me. He knows how much I detest starting from nothing. You could even say, I hate it. Very well, Zexus. Time is of no meaning, and I shall return as my strength increases. As I'm making my way out of the city, I am reminded of the last time I was in Neriak. I was a wizard then, and oh, what a grand time of it I had. At least, until that unfortunate incident with the cliff. You see, I once was a wizard full of power and might. I traveled the world spreading malice and spite. My days spent fighting, my enemies igniting, as I gathered them in force, gaining power, quad-kiting. Then a mistake was made in a moment so sad. On a stormy, snowy day, the story turned bad. Looking behind me, I failed to notice the ledge. By the time I looked forward, I had run off the edge. The fall was so long through the wind and the blizzard, but the landing was swift, ending my time as a wizard. There's a lesson to be learned here. Even when blizzards are blowing, if you want to live longer, watch where you're going. Excellent. My spells are prepared, my simple club is ready, and it's time to do violence. You know, for a mundane club, you are quite the functional weapon. I believe every good weapon should have a name, and I shall name you Jean-Pierre. So, Jean-Pierre, would you like to hear a story? I'll take your silence as an affirmative. The story starts many years ago when I was a king. Yes, you may not believe it based on my humble beginnings that you've just witnessed, but I was. And I was a good king, maybe the greatest of all time. Oh, hold that thought, Jean-Pierre. We'll get back to the story shortly. First, we need to gather a few things. Well, we couldn't have done any better than that. We gained a shield. A very basic shield to be sure, but a shield nonetheless. I shall call him Orion. So Orion, I was telling Jean-Pierre a story. Jean-Pierre, where were we? Ah, yes. I was a great king. But, like most things, I had a weakness. Power. Power was my weakness. Yes, a common enough failing even today. However, the result of my failing was anything but common. Once you rule everything, what more is there? What's that you say, Jean-Pierre? The Outer Planes? You are correct. I began to extend my reach into the plains, and this is where I first met my Lord Inaruk, and everything changed. We'll come back to that, but for now we need to make another run. Here we are, back to the battlefield. But Orion, Jean-Pierre, before I get back to my story about my failings, this fighting with both a weapon and a shield reminds me of a time I was a Shadow Knight. I was a glorious terror on the battlefield for decades, right up until that time I backed into a dragon. You see, I once was a Shadow Knight full of power and might. I traveled the world spreading malice and spite. My foes fled before me, fear infused to the bone, falling into the darkness their life drained for my own. One battle gone wrong was what spelled my doom, in the ruins of Sebalus, near Trakanon's room. My companions were falling, our plan gone awry. I pulled away what I could as they continued to die. In my haste, I failed to notice I had run the wrong way. I faced Trakanon, my doom, and I was finished that day. There's a lesson to be learned here, something worth knowing. If you want to live longer, watch where you're going. So back to the story about Inaruk and my failings. My kingdom was expanding to the plains, and eventually we found ourselves on the Plane of Hate, facing Inaruk himself. We had underestimated him, and after a grueling series of battles, he laid our army to waste. He captured our commanders along with myself. Over the years, he eventually killed all the others, but he kept me around and tormented me for centuries. At some point, my mind likely broke, although really I haven't noticed. At that point, he brought me back to this world and gave me an unbreakable command to spread hate. I've been brought back countless times in various incarnations, always with that same command: spread hate. I do my best. You know, all this running kind of reminds me of the time I was a bard. I was a pure symphony of destruction, all until that situation with the trap. You see, I once was a bard full of power and might. I traveled the world spreading malice and spite. I gathered foes by the dozen, into a mob they would merge. Their minds broke as they chased me, hearing my dissonant dirge. A time and a place for every song, but bad things can happen when the timing is wrong. I played the dirge accidentally at a gathering of gods. They all turned upon me, I couldn't face those odds. So I ran off with great speed as my only defense, right into a pit trap. My shame was immense. There's a lesson to be learned here, something worth knowing. If you want to live longer, watch where you're going. Yes, I did my best. Hundreds of times I was sent back to spread hate across the land. Sometimes I worked alone, sometimes with a group, sometimes with an army, but always spreading the word and the work of Inaruk. It's easy to hate. I hated what had happened to me. I hated wars between races. I hated good. I hated evil, and everything in between. Inaruk had filled me to the top with hatred, and I let it spill out of me in an ocean of anger across the world. I even began to hate myself. I begged Inaruk to let it end, to choose another, but he just laughed his evil laugh with that big dumb face of his and denied me this release. So I gave up. I tried. I just tried leaning into it more. I had already gone so far, what did it matter? It became almost boring. Did I really hate anything anymore? Was I just numb? Eventually, I came to realize there was something I did hate more than anything. It had all coalesced into a single hatred. Inaruk. I hate him. I hate him more than I can ever express. This time, with your help, Jean-Pierre and Orion, I will become strong enough. I will destroy him, and I will free myself forever. You know, this kind of reminds me of a time I was a necromancer. Everything went great until that situation. Hey everyone, Sigil here. I hope you enjoyed being introduced to Darendrel the Immortal. If you want to see more, make sure you hit those YouTube buttons so you get alerted when the next one comes out, and I will see you there. Thanks for watching.
Hit start, no looking back. Controllers in hand on the right track. We're streaming dreams, making worlds collide. 1,000 voices cheering worldwide.
You know, I've been reincarnated so many times that every time I die, it's almost like I rise from the ashes, like that mythical beast.
Like a phoenix, you burst in a fire burn. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes. Phoenix, you burst in a fire burn. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes.
If you know, you know.